Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com, and this is episode 122 of Photo Critiques. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard that I'm no longer accepting any new images for critique. I will be doing critiques for a while though, because I have such a backlog to get through that I'll be doing the videos through February and into March, but I'm not accepting any new images. Now, if for some reason you didn't hear why I came to that decision to not do critiques anymore, in the description of this video there's a link. Click on it. It takes you to my website where I wrote a short article where I talk about why I'm not going to be doing critiques anymore and the exciting thing I'm going to be doing instead of critiques. So you might want to check that out. In this episode 122, I'm pleased to critique the work of Leire Unzueta. Now, I know I pronounced your name improperly, so I apologize, Leire. Leire sent me in some nice images, and this first one in Monument Valley is kind of the classic shot. You have the stone in the foreground and the one in the background, very nicely laid out, very nice composition. The only thing I could suggest is this stone here is cut out. So you either want it totally obscured by this front stone, so you move to your left a little bit so it's completely behind this stone, or you move to your right a little more and you get it completely in the shot. So we're getting all three of these stones completely in the shot and not obscured by each other. That's what I could suggest there. We just don't want it just jutting out like this. Now, as far as the processing, I consider that kind of a fine art processing, and I don't think it's really possible even to critique a fine art photograph in that regard. There's no real like thick line in the sand. On one side is a regular photograph, and on the other side is a fine art photograph. So it's kind of little blurry line there. But what I consider a fine art photograph is when the photographer is trying to create something with their image that's a little bit not there. It's an alter reality to give it a different feeling and a different sense to the viewer. And in this case, I think that this processing with these burnt corners and really flat monochrome look is a fine art image. And let's face it, with fine art images, either as a viewer, you're either going to love it or you might hate it, or there's going to be all different shades in between. But there's no way that me as a person doing a critique would say that you're wrong, because it's so subjective. It could be just so subjective, more so than regular photography, if I could put it that way. So, in this case, I do like the processing. I like that the burnt corners help lead your eye more towards the middle. And if anyone's interested in doing shots like this, by all means do it. This shot here I consider a fine art shot too, and that's because we have one dominant color. Now we have this really kind of classic shot when you're in Venice where you get the boats lined up and they're moored to these posts in the water, and that really is a classic shot that most photographers will get. You just want something interesting in the background, and Leire did that here. We have the town in the background, very interesting. And in this case though, she sucked the color out of the entire shot except for blue, and we have blue saturated. Now one little tip, and what Leire did is fine. A lot of us, we saturate our colors, and sometimes I see shots with the colors super saturated, and generally speaking that fatigues the viewer if you have all the colors really saturated. So it's much better to just saturate one color. So pick one color that you think might be artful, or to add some interest to your shot. And in this case, blue was perfect. So we saturate one color, in this case blue. And it's not hard on our brain. It's just the way our brain as human beings work. If it was saturated really strong, every color was saturated, it causes eye fatigue, and it's not as pleasant to look at. So the viewer won't like your photograph as much as they might if it wasn't as saturated. So back to this specific shot. Like I mentioned, this kind of a classic shot you do when you're in Venice, and I do like the blue being dominant, and you can see in the sky it comes out too. Again, we have these burnt corners that help you look more towards the middle. This vignette helps you look more towards the middle of the shot. So it's a nice shot, very nice. This now, to me, is a straight art shot. You have the Eiffel Tower reflected in the puddle, and it's obscured up here by the waves in the puddle, and down here by this kind of muck in the puddle. So, straight art image. In this case, it's a black and white. You know, uh, in the eye of the photographer, what she's trying to come across, or to give the viewer, trying to get the viewer to feel. Again, I think this is an art image because of the processing. Is we're looking at the Empire State Building in New York City. Um, it's very interesting, processing, and like I said, this I believe is a fine art image, and I do like the composition itself, the way she laid it out with the Empire State Building right in the middle and kind of framed by these other two buildings right here. We kind of have this little valley of buildings building up to the Empire State Building. So it's a really, really nice composition. This is Machu Picchu. Very, very nice image. I don't know, looking at this, it looks like it might have been a point and shoot camera. Very well done, especially if it was a point and shoot camera. We do have all this kind of negative space up here. I know you got this peak in here, most of it in at least, but it's really obscured. I don't know if you might wanted to work this scene and see if you could get some different angles and try to minimize that sky a little bit. But I do like this composition as it is. It is very well done. This again, I believe, is a fine art image because of the processing. A very symmetrical shot, very well done as far as that composition. But as you zoom in, you could see this kind of look that is on the image. It's to give it kind of that feel, that look. So it's really a fine art shot. This shot reminds me in previous critiques where I talk about when you're shooting deep valleys, where there's you got deep valley with water at the bottom. It's really difficult to photograph because no matter where the sun is on a sunny day, you're going to have one side of the valley in deep shadow and the other one's going to be very bright. And in this courtyard, you're dealing with the same thing. The sun is over here to the left a little bit, but we have this deep shadow. And what you're going for here, it's obvious Leire is going for, is a symmetrical shot, standing right in the middle of this pool, shooting straight across to the door here, and having it trying to be symmetrical. But what spoils it is this deep shadow over here. It doesn't allow the eye to really see how balanced the shot is. So because the light is kind of harsh, you have to work the scene in a different way. This shot's nice. I mean, obviously, if it was slightly overcast out and you just had, no strong shadows, it would have worked a lot better, and maybe some reflections of clouds in the water would have been a much stronger shot. So what you're dealing with here is you work the scene. It looks like, as I mentioned, the sun is coming from this direction, so we have some side lighting on this wall and probably the wall behind you too. So you could come in, we have some interesting tile work here and some interesting carvings here, and it's pronounced even more because of the side light. So maybe you could come in here and get some different shots, close-ups of the door frame, shoot up this way of these windows, different things like that. And I don't know what's on this wall that's getting directly hit by the sun. Maybe you could get some different types of looks over there too. So this comes down to working the scene because the light is just really harsh. This shot here, I actually love what you did with it here. As you can see here, Leire in the what little background was showing, she sucked the color out. So that puts all the emphasis on the model, and it's just a really nice shot as far as that composition. It's just really nice. Now what I can say is, I mentioned many times in critiques and in the past, we always want the eyes in perfect focus. We don't care if the nose is in focus, the lips, the ears, as long as the eyes are in focus. And it doesn't matter if it's a person or some type of animal or an insect, even a moth, a butterfly. We want the eyes to be in perfect focus almost all the time. Now in this case, as you can see, the eyes are soft. It looks like your camera grabbed focus back here, and that's called back focusing, where it's focusing behind where you really want the focus. So in this case, when it's kind of a three-quarter view where she's her face is facing over your, in this case, your left shoulder, you want to focus on the front eye. And the front eye is the most important. You want the iris and the eyelashes. You just want them in super tight, perfect focus. In this eye wouldn't be as important. Of course, that would be less in focus depending on what f-stop you used. It might be considerably more blurry, but that's okay as long as the front eye is in perfect focus. But in that case, in this case, as I mentioned, it back focused. You could see how this is in better focus over here than the eyes are that are more towards the camera. It's more focused back here. So if you ever get an opportunity to do a similar shot, just remember, focus on the front eye if the person's looking over one of your shoulders. If they're looking straight at you, then you could focus on both eyes and make sure they're a really good tight focus. But I really like this look here of making this all black and white back here. It really puts the emphasis more so on her face. This is the Manhattan Bridge. I believe this is the East River down here. This is, a very photographed bridge. And it's probably been photographed every which way there is, so it's hard to get anything unique. Now, a couple things. Choosing this angle, I know you probably chose it so you could get the Empire State Building in the shot, but looking at the bridge like this from this angle, looking at the guide wires, it just kind of makes it look blurry, like it's not in perfect focus. So this is a scene that you need to work. You need to work the scene. This bridge will offer you all different types of geometric shapes and ideas to get different types of different types of shots. This part down here isn't very attractive either. We have the highway going here, the cars on the highway, this building back here looks like a FedEx. It's just not very attractive. So I would work this scene and get some different angles of this bridge. Use different focal length lenses. Get higher, get lower, shoot, some symmetrical shots, some things that are off skew, just work the scene, and I think you would get a much better shot than this. The other thing too, I'm sure you were on vacation here, you didn't spend a lot of time maybe, but if you could come back at a different time of day, get the light a little different, because the light's a little bit harsh, and we have some harsh shadows over here. So if you get a different time of day, different types of cloud cover in the sky to make it a little more interesting, things like that. Different time of year for those people that live around here. Get it when there's snow on the ground, when the leaves are changing in the fall. Things like that will add, of course, to the interest. So, just because you shot something once doesn't mean you can't go back over and over and over again and get it in different light, different times of year, different seasons, different sky conditions, different weather conditions. Now, as I mentioned, now I'm pretty sure Leire was visiting here on a vacation, so it's not something I don't think she could go back to, at a whim. But for all those things that are in our backyard, we could always do that. It's a great shot. I really like this shot. It's kind of really nice layers. We have the lower part here with the reflections of the clouds and the reflections of the trees. Then we have this lighter green area, which are the leaf trees, trees with leaves on them. Then we have the pine trees, which are a little further up. And it's really nice. Really nice job. I just like the composition. I like where you stood. I like your focal length. Everything about this shot I really do like. This too, this like perfect. You stood in a perfect spot. You kind of got the leading line of the little stream, and the valley helps the viewer's eye get led through the shot, through the beautiful mountains and sky in the background. Now, looking at this up here, it was 9 millimeters, 1/800th of a second at 4.5. It's not showing any other, EXIF data here. So it kind of appears this could have been a point-and-shoot camera. Which you did really well if it was. If it wasn't a point-and-shoot camera, this part down here is a little blurry. So what I would suggest if you had a DSLR, if this was a DLSR, is that you focus about 1/3 of the way up into the scene, which would be right around here. And you used an f-stop of more like f8, f11, somewhere in there. Then, if you did that, this entire scene would have been in tight focus from the front all the way to the back. This shot here is kind of muted too. It's kind of like a smog almost, or a foggy day, and It's a little blurry. Again, I think this could have been a point and shoot camera. You can see all back here is a little blurry. This lady's a little blurry. It looks like there's better focus right in here a little bit, but it's still not super tight. So technically, I think the focus is off, and the real muted colors is definitely, you know, back here, the muted colors. Then down here they're more vibrant, especially in the clothing, in the ground. So it's kind of an unusual shot, and I would say it's borderline fine art in a way. But I think if you used a DSLR and focused, like I mentioned before, about a third of the way up into the scene, used a smaller f-stop, more like f8, f11, I think you would have had a much better, more superior shot. This is a really nice shot. No, this is definitely a DSLR with an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. Very nice color, very nice processing. I like the way you framed it, so it kind of is the windows and these sashes, the kind of leading lines right through the shot to the door, the photograph, and the chair. Very well done. Very nice shot. This shot here, the scene itself isn't super attractive, but I think you did a great job doing the best you could with what was given to you. The light isn't that great. It's kind of hazy. It looks like it was really windy. It was 1/640th of a second, and we still have some movement in the grasses here. So it looks like it was very, very windy. This could have been that point and shoot camera again. So I think a DSLR with a bigger sensor would have rendered this background a lot better. It wouldn't have been as hazy. So you did the best you could, I think, with the equipment you had and the conditions that were presented to you. So, you know, in that case, Leire, you did a really nice job. I like how you used a foreground element here with the grasses and the flowers, and, you know, interesting midground element and background element. And I think that's it. Yep, that's it for Leire. And again, I am sorry I mispronounced your name. I thank you for sharing your images with us, and I'd like to thank everyone that watches all my videos. I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you guys have time, go over to my website, anthonymorganti.com. I got all kinds of photography stuff over there. And if you could, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel name is Anthony Morganti. That's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon.